Welcome to another episode of A Life Worth Living.
What is the common thread that connects us all?
Sometimes we feel alone and we believe that we are the only person on earth who could possibly feel this way.
But maybe we all have more in common than we think.
So, we're asking for people's point of view to talk about their experiences in an attempt to better ourselves and find the common thread that connects us all. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Anaheim Stoneworks and Master Toddy LA Training Center. Hi guys, welcome to A Life Worth Living. I'm Sophia Silva.
And this is Jason Waller. We have a great guest today. Thanks for joining us today, Jack. Really appreciate having you on.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Of course. So, Jack, you've been a big contributor. We're both Christian backgrounds, both believe in the Lord, and obviously brought us to where we're at today is our belief. And can you give us just a little background on what you do with Mariners Church and what you bring to the table as far as addiction, and start with that.
Okay. Well, to start, what I do for Mariners Church, Mariners is a local congregation here in Orange County. We've got 4 different campuses around Orange County. I work at the Irvine campus, which is like right kind of in the heart of Orange County. And so my role there is the pastor of care and recovery. And the other day I said that to somebody, and this was at church, right? And they're like, so they're asking me, they go to my church and like, what do you do? So sometimes the name doesn't even say that. And so I had to explain, I just really shortly said, I work with hurting people.
Yeah. With hurting people?
Hurting people, right. And she was wise enough to say, we're all hurting, which I love that, because I think that's the response that you appreciate, because someone's mature enough to say we're all broken, we're all hurting.
We suffer all in our own ways.
We do.
I like that description. Yeah.
But I have the privilege of working with people whose lives are stuck, right? So they're either stuck in addiction, maybe they've come off a bad marriage or a hurtful divorce, or they're wrestling with mental illness, or a combination of those things. And so the ministries that we provide under my scope of care are groups and support groups and workshops and one-on-one interactions that really target people whose lives are kind of broken and hurting.
How did you get involved with that? Because that's such a, I'm very familiar with it, but in general, it's such an amazing concept in what you do. And the congregation is huge. Sophia, I don't know if you've been there or not. They got about,
this is new.
I want to say over 10,000 people, correct?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a very large congregation, so it's a very big role.
Right, so I have a lot of people that help me, right? It's not just me, right? Yeah, I've got a great team. But that's a great, people always ask me, how did you get into this role? Because how does one choose to just work with hurting people, or people who know they're really hurting and are coming to you and saying, I need help? And really, I always say I kind of backed into it, right? So I started my church career late. I did 10 years in a family business and felt like God was moving me into the ministry, very common, but in that, I didn't really know exactly where, except I wanted to help people get into community. I wanted to help people get connected in relationship. And really, so I started that journey and kind of blew my life up. I'd been through a divorce already. I'd been a year out when I made that transition from the business world to the ministry. But I really hadn't looked at some of my stuff, because about 8 years prior to that, in 1998, I was in full-blown addiction. So I had walked through some of that drug and alcohol addiction, but had showed up to a marriage still a broken addict, and did not realize that I could act out in other ways. And so through that failed marriage and that failed relationship, things began to percolate as I was on staff with the church. And so that caused me to have to go into a period of restoration, counseling, and really got back into recovery, into the 12 steps again. And so I got through some healing, and the guys on staff, we were a young church at that time, said, hey, we think you should lead this whole recovery thing at our church.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you guys have implemented recovery through the foundation of the church and stuff.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing that you guys do.
So this was at a previous congregation that I worked for before Mariners, but it was the same type dynamic. It was like, look, your story is one that is more conducive to reaching out.
What kind of work do you guys do with people there when you're treating people at the church?
At Mariners.
At Mariners, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a recovery ministry which is focused, on helping people get through addiction or addictive behavior, compulsive behavior. But we also do workshops. Like we have one coming up that's called EQ. And
What's that?
It's about, it's kind of this idea that emotional intelligence, which is what we use to measure, that's what EQ is.
Yeah.
We raise our emotional intelligence by tuning in EQ, stereo, get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So by tuning into our emotional world. And so it's this general thing that like, wow, everybody could benefit from that. But we use those environments to funnel people into the support groups for like anxiety and depression, trauma and abuse, trauma and forgiveness. So that, because those are the environments where people are going to get the critical care they need. But we use these kind of larger all-call events.
How often do the workshops happen?
Well, they happen about once a quarter. So we kind of run on a quarterly basis.
So those happen once a quarter, but through like on a weekly basis, what services do you guys provide there?
So that's where the support groups come in. So we use those once a quarter, and then we get people into a supportive environment that tracks with them on a weekly basis.
And is most of the focus around the emotional intelligence? Is that kind of the foundation around that?
Well, that's what we get people in the door for, right? Because we all know that, like, hey, we all deal in the world of emotions.
Yeah.
And we help give them some really solid skills, like out of that, but then invite them at the end of that to say, hey, if there's some other deeper things happening, like addiction, like anxiety and depression, things that don't go away because we haven't went to a workshop, right? You need a supportive, ongoing environment. That's where we get them and invite them into that.
So it's more of like a broad spectrum, and then you break it down specific to their needs, correct?
Right, exactly.
That's so cool.
And you can get more people to come to a 3 or 4 hour workshop than you can to say, hey, sign up for an anxiety and depression support group for the next,
not
right.
me.
So
Exactly.
how many people are you guys actually working with right now through this? I mean, currently?
Several hundred. I mean, you could say in our recovery meetings, we have 100 plus that come to meetings on Monday night. So that's once a week where they do that. And then we have a speaker meeting before that, which is serving between 60 and 100 depending on the night. And then during the week, so we have recovery meetings happen every day of the week. So then you got another, a couple hundred are coming through the doors. And then the support groups and environments, when they're on, we're seeing anywhere from between 50 and 100. Through the, if you put them all together, right?
Do you, I mean, as far as, cause I think it's amazing. I'm an attendee of the church and just what they do. I mean, it's such a solid organization and stuff, but I wish something that I've seen out there in the churches is that there's not a lot of churches that support or provide this, as they think it's, it's more of a moral thing or God can deal with it. It's not a disease. There's not. So
mental health, and I'm going to include in that addiction, and we know that mental health includes the issue of addiction. And I'll be honest, the church has been slow to come around to seeing the other issues involved besides morality. But I think that we're sort of in a springtime of the church. Rick Warren, if you guys know, it's Saddleback. It's a very large evangelical congregation, purpose-driven life. Like he's on CNN at time. Like he's a sort of a public figure. His church, which is also in Orange County, has been leading for the church's part, engaging the conversation of mental health. So we're so
important,
and we're in great standing, but we're just starting out, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of behind the curve. But that's, I'm picking up the mantle from Rick's church as well. Like I want to be on that front edge for our congregation and for Orange County, because the reality is it's not just a moral issue. The mental health issues that we wrestle with are not our fault, right? We get handed them, through a disease, through genetics, and then environment tends to draw these things out. But then we have to decide, And
I think institutions need to adapt to the changing times. I mean, maybe back in the day, the morality issue was the only thing they were facing, but we're facing a lot of other things nowadays.
Well, it's also the reality of what the overall, the fact that addiction in general is the leading cause of injury death in America.
Yes.
Someone's dying every 10 minutes from addiction or drug-related incidences. And we have a lot more technology today than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. From the scans, the CBT scans, the brain scans, the MRIs, the CAT scans, everything that we have out there, you're able to, it's scientifically proven today that it is a disease. It's not a moral issue. And that's
well, so I think for us, and I think the fear is that if we remove the moral issue, then we remove agency from people. In terms of, we don't point out what they're doing wrong in terms of dealing with the disease, then we'll give them, and I'm going to use these air quotes because I don't believe them, excuses, right? And really, I think when you right-size what we are responsible for and what we're not, you actually give people agency. And so I think that's what churches need to understand, is that we're not taking away the moral piece. No one's saying we're not responsible for our actions or what we do with our disease or our dis-ease. But what we are saying is we cannot make somebody responsible for something they're not, because that actually takes power away from them. And we find has reduced their desire to even deal with what they can, right?
I have a question, because you work with these people one-on-one. How can someone get over the feeling of guilt or shame over their past actions that they've done before, maybe within their disease, you know, when they were going through the thick of it.
Yeah.
How do you work with that?
There's this thing called the 12 steps, right? And that's the easy answer, right? I mean, and I think that the 12 step, one of the genius behind the 12 steps is it leads people into that process of facing the guilt and facing the shame, really. Because exposure, so shame is the problem, right? And shame is exposure with condemnation, right? So people look at us, we've done things, and so the 12 steps helps us ease into that shame that needs to be drawn out and reduced, so that we can embrace our story, right? The things we've done, and therefore walk in wholeness and you know, meet people eye to eye, right? Yeah. And I think it's a lifelong process. And I think a lot of the current research, you know, Brene Brown, her stuff on shame has been enormous, right? Because a lot of this research, like you were talking about, Jason, is really bearing out what I think we've known for a long time through Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. They didn't have the science back then to.
I'm not familiar with this research. What's some key things that she says?
Brene Brown.
Sorry, he says.
Oh, so, yeah.
I'm not familiar with this.
Okay, so
educational course right now.
Yeah, I know.
So she did a great TED talk about 3 years ago on her research. She's a PhD, social science research. She did some research on shame, right, and why people hide, what keeps us, and the toxicity of shame, like actual research. And so I think when you combine that with what you mentioned, people in recovery having done things or been a part of things which they're ashamed of, and how do we get through that? It's facing that stuff that Brene Brown has done good research on, that really keeps us in hiding. And her research shows that the primary thing that gets us out is a me too.
A me too?
A me too. It's empathy. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that you just brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where we come into a supportive community.
Well, let's bring it to the surface and really identifying with those things. It's like you said, a big thing on this is we're not justifying our actions or the things that we went through during when we were active in our disease.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's really being able to pull back and saying, look, I take full accountability for that, and it's making a change about it. It's not, it's not justifying it, but it's like what you're going to do from here forward, and really bringing them to shed light on it.
Right, and I think that's so important because I'm sure that keeps a lot of people back. Because that feeling will eat you up inside.
Yes, it's toxic, right?
Yeah, exactly, it's toxic, and people also, I like the empathy part. I think outsiders need to be empathic towards that and try to understand more.
And when we decide to surrender, right, and get help, that's where we need other people around to say, yeah, me too, because that begins to deconstruct the shame that we're in. And it's a slower process. It's not just like one me too will do it. It's like we have to engage in that, because we've told ourselves stories about ourselves that will not be exposed unless we hear it through someone else's story. That will, oh yes, that's me, and then that begins to say, we can relax a little bit. You know what I mean?
So with that being said, I think there's what are some of the events that you guys have coming up next, and what are you guys doing moving forward? When's the next the next quarterly event? Okay,
so EQ happens on the next big workshop. The one that we're really pushing folks to is putting a lot of press on is September 19th. It's Saturday morning, starts at 9 a.m. We even got an article in the Newport Independent written up on it, because we are trying to make it welcome to other faiths, and so we've even put it out to the Jewish Community Center, which is right across the street from us, because this is a topic like emotional intelligence and how we deal with the world of emotions is relevant to everybody.
How's the church related to that? I mean, just the response to
I'm not fired yet.
So. That's good. No, I think it's amazing that you guys are doing that.
I think our motto is we want to be welcoming and opening to other, obviously churches and even faiths to the degree that we can, right? And so I think everybody's behind it, and I'm kind of like, let's just do it and ask for forgiveness later kind of policy.
I mean, you're setting a good example. I mean, in a world where no one can get along about anything.
Well, I think you're making a huge step for not only what you guys are doing, but just all elements and as a whole. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I didn't know that you guys had opened it up. So that's huge.
So we'll see how that goes. I think it has relevance. I mean, we're not making any bones that we're a Christian church, and there might be something said about Jesus, and not to convince them to do anything, but just to say this is kind of our value system, But a big part of it, particularly the front part, is really going to be based on the science of affect and emotion and how that works, which is, you know,
awesome.
kind of interfaith. You don't have to have a faith tradition to buy into that. So that's one event. And then I think the launch for the Mariners Recovery Ministry, the relaunch, October 12th. It happens on a Monday night. We're really looking forward to that.
Go.
Yeah. We're syncing up with 3 other big churches that do recovery communities in Orange County. And that's we have one called The Effect down in San Juan Capistrano, which is actually a rehab that started a Christian recovery church.
Oh, wow.
Based church. Phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, led by Dave Brisbane. And then there's a church in Costa Mesa called The Crossings, and Randy Moratis runs that meeting, and that's an ongoing meeting. Yeah. Phenomenal. Maybe, I don't know if you've ever spoken there.
But I know Randy very well.
Yeah. So the 3 of us are trying to kind of put our work together and put our best foot forward for Orange County, because our meeting's on Monday, Dave down in San Juan is on Tuesday, and Randy's on Friday.
Well, dude, that's amazing that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
Crushing it.
I'm sure there's something in between there we could fit in, but right now that's what we've got. And
that sounds like you guys got yourself busy. You know, I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to be attending that for sure, and you know, I just can't wait to support and be there for the ride. It's going to be awesome that you guys are doing that. So
yeah.
But anything else, man? Just wanted to see if you had any other elements you wanted to bring to the table.
Or maybe a last tip for people who might be, going through challenges right now. What's the first step they can take?
Yeah.
Or they're hurting right now.
Yeah, I think for me, being around, being willing, being open, right, to the signals that people offer you. And I'm part of addiction. My addiction, in particular, isolated me, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think the main tragedy of addiction isn't that we're using, but is that we are disconnected, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, and I think so. If there are people who are in addiction, my urging is for them to connect with somebody, right? And even ask, how am I doing? How do you see that I'm doing? And receive that reflection. Because all of the best growth in my life came through somebody lovingly saying, hey, what's up, man? Even my journey back from addiction the first time in '98, and then there were other points along the way. And so if people are hurting, seek out help, right? Get that reflection and
well, know there's help out there. I think that's a big portion of it.
Yeah.
Where can people find, the church, the website? Where can they go to connect if they want to?
So if they want to connect with Mariners Church on the web, it's marinerschurch.org. Okay. And our recovery ministry is marinerschurch.org/recovery. And then some of those care resources I've mentioned, like the Emotional Quotient Workshop and some of the other support groups, can be found on there as well. And if you just type in marinerschurch.org/care, that'll take you to some of those support groups that we talked about. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, man. I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'm really excited to watch this, expand and to be a part of it.
So. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you both.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Good out.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get all the latest episodes, and follow me at sophiasilva.org.
Or you can follow me at WallerJason on Twitter and at Jason Waller on Instagram.
Thanks for watching.
Take care, guys.
Toodaloo. Let us know in the comments below how you make life worth living. We're sure you have lots of great tips to share, and by working together, we can all thrive. I have it memorized.
She's good. I think that's going to be good. One more time. Let's do it again.
The speed needs to be a little bit faster. Can you make it a little bit faster?
No, I think it's better that way because I need to be able to handle it. We'd like to thank Anaheim Stone for making this show possible. Nothing says luxury like enhancing your surroundings with natural quality stone.
Master Toddy LA Training Center offers authentic Muay Thai training with locations in Bangkok, Pomona, and Anaheim. For more information, visit mastertoddyla.com.